David always believed his life was complete. At 42, he was a devoted father and husband, the kind of man who found joy in the little moments. A shared breakfast with his wife, Laura, and their 10-year-old son, Ethan. To anyone watching, their family seemed perfect, a picture of love, warmth, and security. David's heart swelled every time he saw Ethan's bright eyes light up with curiosity and Laura's gentle smile that could soothe any storm. Their home was filled with laughter and stories. Evenings were spent playing board games or watching movies, and weekends often meant trips to the park where David would push Ethan on the swings, feeling time slow down. David was proud of the bond he had nurtured, believing it was unbreakable. More than anything, he wanted Ethan to grow up feeling safe and cherished. Laura, a soft-spoken woman with a quiet strength, had been David's anchor since their college days. She was the soul of their home, a loving mother who balanced care and discipline with ease. David often marveled at how effortlessly she juggled her job and family life, never letting stress show. But beneath the surface of this seemingly flawless family, small cracks began to appear, almost imperceptible at first. David noticed Laura growing more distant, her smiles a little less frequent. Her eyes occasionally clouded with thoughts he couldn't reach. Late nights at work became more common. Though she insisted everything was fine, Ethan, innocent and trusting, seemed unaware, still clinging to his father's hand during bedtime stories. David brushed aside his doubts, unwilling to disrupt the fragile harmony they had built. He told himself it was just stress, a phase that would pass. After all, their love had weathered many storms. Yet a restless unease settled quietly in his chest, like a shadow lurking just beyond the light. One morning, David woke early to prepare breakfast for Ethan before school. The aroma of coffee filled the kitchen, mingling with the soft chatter of birds outside. Laura was already gone, leaving behind a note that read, "Running late. Don't wait for me." The words felt colder than the dawn's chill, though David tried to ignore the sharp edge of disappointment. He watched Ethan munch on his toast, oblivious to the tension weaving through the room. The boy's laughter as he told a silly story to his father was like a balm, momentarily healing David's growing worry. Still, as David kissed Ethan goodbye at the school gate, he couldn't shake the feeling that the world he thought he knew was shifting beneath his feet. The peaceful illusion of their family life was beginning to crack, and with it came a whisper of truths yet to be faced. Days passed, and David found himself walking on the fragile edge of suspicion. Laura's absence became more frequent, her excuses more rehearsed. When she was home, her smiles seemed forced, her eyes distant, as if her mind was tangled in a secret he couldn't penetrate. David's heart ached with a confusing mixture of hope and doubt, unwilling to confront the shadows growing between them. At first, he convinced himself it was just stress from work. After all, Laura had always been a dedicated employee, passionate about her career. But the late-night phone calls quickly ended when he entered the room, and whispered messages sent in hushed tones began to gnaw at his peace. The home they once filled with laughter now echoed with silence and unanswered questions. David's love for Laura was deep, but so was his fear. He didn't want to imagine a betrayal lurking behind her gentle touch. Still, every time he glanced at her, a knot of worry tightened in his chest. What if the happiness he believed in was nothing but a fragile mask? Ethan, too young to grasp the complexities, sensed the tension in the air. His innocent questions pierced David's heart. "Why do you and Mom seem sad sometimes?" he asked one evening as they sat by the fireplace. David forced a smile, brushing off the question with a gentle, "Sometimes grown-ups have worries, but we're okay." But the boy's perceptive eyes betrayed his confusion. David saw the flicker of fear and uncertainty in Ethan's gaze, a reflection of the unease he tried to hide. It was a silent reminder that the truth, no matter how carefully guarded, eventually touches everyone. One night, as David lay awake, the house quiet except for the ticking clock, he heard the soft vibration of a message arriving on Laura's phone. Curiosity, mixed with dread, pulled him to glance at the screen. A name flashed, someone unfamiliar. The message was brief, but unmistakably intimate, stirring a storm of emotions he had tried to keep at bay. David's hands trembled. He wrestled with his conscience. Should he ask Laura directly or pretend ignorance for Ethan's sake? The weight of the secret felt unbearable, yet the fear of shattering his family kept him silent. Days later, he tried to bridge the growing distance, planning a family dinner, hoping to reclaim a fragment of their past joy. Laura accepted but seemed distracted, her smiles fleeting. Ethan laughed harder than usual, unaware that his father's heart was breaking quietly beside him. That night, David sat alone after Ethan had fallen asleep, staring at a photograph of the three of them. The faces smiled back, frozen in time, a haunting reminder of what could be lost. The question hung heavy in the air. How much longer could this illusion last? And what would happen when the truth finally surfaced? The day David dreaded arrived without warning. He never imagined that a simple act, checking his wife's phone while she was in the shower, would shatter the fragile world he had tried to protect. A single message, glowing on the screen, exposed what his heart had feared but refused to accept. The words were unmistakable, affectionate, secret, and impossible to ignore. Laura was not the woman he thought he knew. Betrayal lay hidden behind every carefully crafted smile, every whispered excuse. The truth crashed down like a relentless storm, leaving David gasping for air in a sea of disbelief. His mind raced through memories, searching for signs he had missed. The late nights, the distant looks, the unspoken tension, they all suddenly made sense. Yet, understanding brought no comfort. The weight of betrayal pressed on him, cold and unforgiving. David's hands shook as he locked the phone and turned away. He knew confronting Laura was inevitable, but the thought filled him with dread. How would he tell Ethan? How could he protect his son from a pain so deep? That evening, when Laura returned, David's silence was louder than words. The atmosphere was heavy, suffocating. Finally, unable to bear it, he faced her. "Laura," he said quietly, voice trembling, "I know." Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. The confession hung between them like a chasm. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she confessed, fragile, remorseful, torn. David felt the sting of every broken promise. Yet, beneath the hurt, a flicker of love remained, a complicated knot of anger, sorrow, and hope. He realized that their story was not just about betrayal, but about the struggle to hold on when everything seemed lost. Meanwhile, Ethan sensed the change too. One afternoon, as David picked him up from school, the boy's small hand gripped his tightly. "Dad, why does Mom look so sad?" "Are you sad too?" Ethan asked, eyes wide and searching. David swallowed the lump in his throat, forcing a reassuring smile. "Sometimes, son, grown-ups have hard days. But we'll get through this, together." That night, David sat by Ethan's bedside, watching his son's peaceful sleep. The innocence in Ethan's face was a painful reminder of what was at stake. This was no longer just about him and Laura. It was about protecting their son's world, fragile and pure. As the house settled into silence, David's mind wrestled with what lay ahead. Could forgiveness heal wounds so deep? Could love survive such betrayal? The questions haunted him, unanswered. The once unshakable foundation of their family had cracked, and the future seemed uncertain. Yet, beneath the sorrow, David clung to a sliver of hope, hope that his pain could someday lead to healing. The nights grew longer for David, each one a silent battle between despair and determination. The pain of Laura's betrayal carved deep scars, yet his love for Ethan anchored him in a way nothing else could. It was for his son that David forced himself to stand tall, even when his heart felt heavy and fractured. One evening, as Ethan sat beside him on the worn-out couch, David took a deep breath and spoke softly. "My son, take it easy," he said, choosing his words with care. "Life isn't always kind. Sometimes people we love make mistakes that hurt us deeply. But no matter what happens, you have to stay strong and keep your heart open." Ethan looked up, eyes full of trust, unaware of the storms beneath his father's calm voice. David wanted to protect that innocence for as long as he could, to shield his son from the harsh realities he himself was still learning to face. The days that followed were a journey of healing, uneven and painful, yet filled with small moments of hope. David and Laura began to speak again, cautiously and honestly, confronting the wounds that had nearly torn them apart. Forgiveness was not easy. It was a path neither knew how to navigate fully, but both understood it was necessary for themselves and for Ethan. David's greatest fear was the fracture in their family's foundation, but he resolved to rebuild it on honesty and trust, no matter how fragile it seemed. He realized that love was not just about perfect moments, but about enduring pain and choosing to move forward. He often found himself reflecting on what it meant to be a father, not just a provider, but a protector of dreams and a beacon of strength. For Ethan, David wanted to be that unwavering light, even if his own heart still trembled in shadows. One afternoon, as Ethan played in the backyard, David watched him with a bittersweet smile. The boy's laughter rang out clear and free, a reminder that life continues despite the hardships. "My son," David whispered to himself, "take it easy. Learn from this pain, but never let it harden your heart. Love is worth fighting for even when it hurts." Though the road ahead was uncertain, David found solace in this promise to cherish his son, to face the truth without bitterness, and to believe in the possibility of new beginnings. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over their home, David felt a quiet strength settle within him. The untold truth of a father's pain was not just sorrow, it was also hope, resilience, and the enduring power of love.